This is the Team Objection podcast for June 4th, 2020, episode 440. Whole lots of 20s and 40s and multiples in there, but it doesn't matter. I want to address one elephant in the room up front. Are you ready for elephants?
Is it that you asked me not to say Last Dance in this episode one time?
Well,
I have to because I'm an anarchist.
There's the counter. He won't be silenced. We learned that 2 weeks ago.
Ding.
I don't have anything to say, actually. I just...
Okay. A lot of podcasts and other weekly web series are either changing gears on their content this week or canceling them outright. For me, and I mean, this is all of our show, but I do sort of kind of run it to some extent. This is sort of an escape, and you guys who listen regularly know my line of work. So rather than talk about some of the major societal issues at play right now, which we could certainly have a ton of comment on, we're going to keep things light and fluffy. That's not to say it's not important or anything. It's just not the approach we're going to do with this stuff. So we're going to do an episode about like video games and some other stuff that you can do on the side when you're not thinking about other heavy issues, and that's fine. Just know that we are certainly aware of what's happening. It's not like we're, ignoring it or anything of that nature. It's just I kind of deal with it 12 hours a day at this point, and I'd like to not do that for this half hour.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like we aren't supportive of, protests and movements and what they're fighting for, but we're just we always have kind of been that gray area. We've always been that kind of, escape, I guess, for lack of a better word. And video games have been that for us, for a lot of us. So we're going to keep that theme going.
And I like that you said we support it. And I think, now that that's established, we can just keep it easy and fluffy. And
yeah, I didn't check in with you guys about supporting it or not. I didn't check in. I'm sorry.
Did you see me cringe? I was like, ugh. But yeah, I mean, you could even say it's part of my privilege, having the right to just be like, hey, you know what? This is not something we're going to talk about at this moment. We can just not do it. But so be it. So instead, we're going to review a video game from years ago.
10 years ago.
It's a pressing need that we have to address right now.
I almost wanted to nix this whole idea, but I thought, Dave plays so little video games.
That is getting to be a really old and outdated stereotype.
Not really. Because even when you're doing better, you're so far behind Chris and I that it's laughable. So
compared to where you were, Dave, you have made great strides.
Yeah, and
compared to a normal red-blooded 35-year-old male.
And let me say, I wasn't positioning this for as an insult like I normally do, where I'm every day. Dave, do you watch a movie even? No, I'm just saying. How many games have you played this year? 3?
Yes.
Okay, I played 3 this week, so...
You played and beat 3 entire games this week.
Well,
no.
And I think the working from home's helped him a little bit.
That's true.
That he's got a little bit more time than he would have before, just because of the way situations are. But
see, there's a few weeks ago, Shaun mentioned something how he said I had a blessed life or a charmed life, or I think was the exact word that he used. I'm pretty sure Shaun playing video games throughout his entire work day.
That's not true. That doesn't happen.
I mean, do you actually work?
If anyone from NAU is listening, that doesn't happen.
But it opened up an opportunity for me to do that for a short time. In the time, there was a very specific window where the coronavirus was sort of quieting down a little bit. It was still there, but the news wasn't as fast, and we hadn't yet hit the protests yet, where I actually was playing a little bit more at home myself in between some stuff or whatever. Now, last week, I played 0. I did not touch Persona 5 Royal, even though I'm at the most interesting part. I did not touch Breath of the Wild, even though I'm at the very final part of it. It didn't happen, so now it's backfiring.
I'm glad you said the most interesting part. That makes me think that you like it. I don't want to be the only person that loved the ending.
Well, we'll see when I'm finished with it, but I've liked everything so far.
I will not be extorted. NAU. I work all the time. If you're listening. Dave, if I will gather this list, but I want to say that it's more than 20, and that's probably too low.
So played that?
No. Here's the other thing. I don't play games, which is a blessing and a curse, because I get stuck on some shitty games that I'm like, well, I've started it. I wanted to play it. I'm going to finish it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to hear that list sometime later, because that seems crazy.
We'll do it next episode. I just need a little bit of time to gather. I'm really weird. I don't know if you guys do this. I keep a list of games that I've beaten and books that I've read, TV shows that I've watched, et cetera, et cetera. I keep lists of everything.
Man, if you die sometime soon, and we're gonna know everything about your life, just once we hack into your phone, just everything.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I actually think I maybe should start doing something like that too, just to look back on it and catalog it, because it used to be that my back archive served that purpose. Like I had all the cases of games that I played, but now that things are getting increasingly digital and or I'm not hanging on to those from the past because I don't need my PS2 games anymore for the most part, maybe it'd be nice to write them down so I have a way to look back.
That's my main thing. That's why I do it. I think that part's really fun. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get vamp for me for just a second.
I just think it is actually crazy to think, like, I hate journaling in the moment, but man, when I look back, I'm like, I'm glad I wrote that down. Wow. And I have to keep reminding myself that frequently. Like, you should write stuff down because when you look back on it, you're going to enjoy it more.
This show sort of serves that purpose for us. Our D&D campaign will serve that same purpose. Now, we don't dislike doing those like you do journaling, but still, I mean, when we look back, I mean, we have the last 8 years of our lives cataloged.
Yeah, for better, for all of our weird thoughts. And I've always, we've talked about it before, going back to our old stuff and wondering, like, would we answer this question the same as before?
And I have a 2009, I think, episode. I found the old radio show that we did.
Oh, man.
Both of them.
Oh, was I on it? Yeah.
The first one that Shaun was on, where we lost the first half hour where we talked about the Suns.
So bad.
All three of us? Like, all of us?
Well, and then the week after that was when you were there as well. And if that wasn't the first time you guys met, it was the second. And we talked about the Suns at the end of the season, and we broke down, like, player by player, should they come back, here's their salary, what's their trade value.
God, I was so bad. I would love to see that.
Yeah, you were not, and I'm not going to sit around and tell you I was good either. I had done it for a few months, and I wasn't great either, but yeah, you can tell you guys were both new to it.
Well, and I didn't know Eric at all, so that was another thing, but
you barely knew Dave.
I would be quiet for, like, minutes on end.
I mean, hell, you barely knew me.
I'd be like, okay, here's my moment. Here it is. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. I've been building for this for 15 minutes. And that was about the Suns. God forbid when we had you on for another part of an hour once where we were talking about more general sports, which has never really been your forte. And Eric's like, all right, let's talk about, like, the Minnesota Vikings offensive lineman. And I could just see you, like, shrinking into the chair.
Yeah. No. Well, there's one about, like, a hockey player who, like, killed someone, like, as a drunk driver, which is terrible. But he was very mad. Which, of course, he was. Because he was like, this piece of shit, this excuse for a life. And I was like, I don't know this person. I can talk about drunk driving, generally speaking, but that seems weird. Yeah. So I don't know if I said much in that episode either. Anyways, that's fascinating.
I also have old episodes of the video sports show we tried to do back then, around the same time, I think about 2009, and I'm garbage at that. Like, now I can look into the camera and talk to people and not really feel that nervous about it. I can talk eloquently. I'm not thinking about it. That was not the case back then. Back then, it was like, which camera am I looking at? What am I supposed to say? I better make sure I walk in with something because I don't want to be sitting there going,
Yeah.
So,
you actually weren't terrible. You're way better now. But some of your co-hosts, it was a little painful. But I respect that. Like, how many years are we in this now? Where, like, I don't think about it, but at the time that was a big deal for them. And
man, can you imagine if we could get on a live radio show now?
Oh, that'd be sweet.
It would be really sweet. We just gotta get some radio station to take us.
Now's the perfect time.
Yeah, they're dying for content, right?
Yeah, it'd be so easy. And I really have, if I ever have time for side projects, and I guess I have another furlough week coming up. Maybe I'll actually rebuild my soundboard. I wanna get intros and outros back. I might even do a video version that'll still play. I haven't decided yet, but
I've been thinking about content again, which is like, whoa, don't hurt yourself, Shaun. But I haven't really been doing that lately, and it's been fun to be like, what can we do to, like, kind of spice things up? And the introduction of the NBA thing that we're playing, and then the possibility of streaming kind of has me, like, excited again, and I think that's fun. I like it.
Well, 9 years into it, it's good that it's still exciting, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think when we switched to video, that breathed some life into it. We've had different panelists over the years that have helped inject some fresh life into it. So I think that was nice because, especially during the virus, it was like, okay, well, it's not that we got stagnant, but there's only so much to talk about. If you don't want to talk about virus-related stuff itself, which we did some, but I also didn't want to do a lot of that either. So now it's like, okay, well, now we can start looking ahead and doing these side things, and again, there's that breath of fresh air in it.
Yeah, totally.
So
Speaking
the
of breath of
Catalyst,
fresh air,
was it a 10-year-old game that I just beat?
Dave,
Is
when
that
I
fresh?
counted, it was about 19. Keep in mind, it's only June.
I don't know what you do with other than that.
A lot. I'm taking a master's degree too.
So we've started to we talked about it once I beat Persona 5 Royal, what game I should play next, and we talked about Jedi Fallen Order, whether it should be Red Dead Redemption 2 or 1. But I busted out the old PS3 and beat through Red Dead Redemption 1.
That was a good call. Jedi Fallen
Yeah.
Order would not have been a good call.
I don't think so either. It would have been okay, but I've mentioned before how much I'm a fan of the Grand Theft Auto style games. And I mean, Red Dead Redemption is essentially Grand Theft Auto, but
With horses.
I mean, but it's horses. Yeah, it's Western, it's horses. And it's weird. I'll start it off by saying I did not have the compulsion to just go like run over people, like shoot people like you do in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
In this game, I was like, I want to be nice to people. I'm trying to find my family. Like, that's the whole thing. It's Shaun's wet dream, basically, is, oh, they captured my family. I have to save them or they killed my family.
And I'm really cool. I'm a desperado.
Yep, it's just Shaun's dream in one game.
So
I didn't have that compulsion.
Let me ask: is it you didn't have the compulsion because of the character you were playing, not necessarily because of the world or the Western? It was like you didn't want John murdering people.
It was a little bit of all of it. It was a little bit of it felt like it was harder to get away from being like wanted, or how you have in Grand Theft Auto, it's just like you drive out to the middle of nowhere and wait for cops to zoom by and no one cares, like whatever, it's really easy not to be wanted. Or it was too easy to hit a wanted status on Grand Theft Auto, so you are like, whatever, I'm already got 1 star, so I just might as well get some more. This one, it wasn't as easy to like bump a cop with your horse, and all of a sudden he's pissed off at you, and you're wanted. You had to like really do something, like you had to shoot somebody or really do something wrong. So really, I don't know. For some reason, I just didn't want to just go like murdering an entire town.
Well,
I felt like more of a connection to him, I guess.
I think it's interesting the escalation you talk about in Grand Theft Auto. It's like, who gives a shit? You go down the catwalk, you kill like 50,000 people, and no one cares. The escalation in Red Dead is, I think, really interesting because you'll have like one guy who like sees you when you accidentally punch someone, and they're like, I'm reporting you. So you got to shoot him, right? Of course.
right?
But then like someone sees that, and then you have to chase them down. And then before you know it, you've killed 15 people. and you're still wanted. So it didn't matter. But it was a good point that I always felt bad. And that's not him.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I texted you guys and said in the very beginning of the game, I felt like John Marston had basically the personality of his horse was the words I used, because he just the entire first beginning of the game, he's like, yes, ma'am, yep, thank you, ma'am, I will help you out, ma'am. Like there was nothing to his character, and then he got a little bit more of that edge on him, and then you kind of heard a little more about his past and got more into, and he became a very likable character, so much so that I kind of miss playing as him now that I'm starting on Red Dead 2.
Yeah, that's a big gamble for Rockstar to take. You're not alone in that, and so to take a character, but like not distance themselves at the same time. You're like playing as a
teasing me.
Yeah, he's right there
from the beginning.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I'm walking by, like, hey John, how are things going? Hey Abigail, hey Jack, little boy, how are you doing, little boy? It's like, wait, but no, I want to play as them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The gameplay overall, like it was, very much a Rockstar game. The story, it really was kind of just, it was just pretty straight path through until you get to the like U.S. Marshals place, where it gets to be more of an interesting type of story. The Mexico part of the story was just kind of ridiculous, almost in a way where it's like, okay, the military men here are just completely corrupt in every single way, shape, and form, but I've got to help them because that's the next mission, basically, is what it felt like. They're like, don't worry, I'm going to help you find the people you want to find. Okay, I did what you wanted. Help me find them. I'm going to help you find the people you want to find.
And he keeps getting, like, sassy with them, and you think maybe, but then it never does, and I think the function those missions serve of like, it's a really gray area. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do if you really want to find your family. Like that was fine, but it wasn't especially enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not to mention the DeSanta, I think the Colonel DeSanta or whatever his name was. That is like the worst Mexican accent I've ever heard in my life. He sounds more like Scarface for bad. Like,
okay, I'm reloading.
It just, and then the colonel, like the president or like colonel or whatever the like al dente was like the highest guy up there, was just so horrifically bad as far as just forgetting about all the people, basically just capturing women and raping them and beating them and killing them or whatever he wanted to do. And then the flip side, when you get over to the other side of the Mexican, where you're helping the rebels, it's like, oh, the leaders know better. Like, yeah, maybe he wants to help us, but he's really a jerk too.
Yeah.
He can't even remember the girl who thinks that they're going to get married. He can't remember her name. It's like, oh no, her name's Luisa. Yeah, Laura. I love Laura. No, her name's Luisa.
I mean, it sort of serves this greater point, right? Like, are we all just bad guys in disguise? Because John gets called out for everything he's done over his life, and it's a lot. It's a laundry list of things. But then you look at all the people around him, including some of the people that are assigned to apprehend him and everybody else connected to him, and you're like, well, these aren't saints. They're nothing close to that.
The only saint is Bonnie.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, her dad's kind of gruff, but he's not mean. He basically just wants to run his farm.
Yeah.
So, on Bonnie, it was kind of funny how the last mission, once you like take your wife into town and meet Bonnie and like buy some grain and stuff for your cattle, Bonnie's there like, oh, so you're Mrs. Marston, huh? And then you ride away and Bonnie's like,
yeah,
like she's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, she clearly had a thing for John, no question.
Oh, yeah,
but
like no question about it. It's like, can you not find your wife? That's probably what she was thinking the entire time.
But John, who's very rooted in Clint Eastwood and Unforgiven, is like, yeah, I'm loyal to my wife.
Yep. Yeah.
Many people aren't back then. Even if they like their wife quite a bit, even if they're like, they adore their wife, they're still like, what's wrong with occasional whores?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty prevalent, it seems, according to these games, like all over every town you go to. But let's see, can you sleep with whores in the first one?
You can't. You're not even allowed, right?
Like, if you ever walk by any sort of anybody walking by that would even proposition you, it's just like, nope, sorry, I got a woman. Basically,
yeah, see, I love that, and I think that's so incongruous with if you try to play this game as like, I'm gonna be like an outlaw, I'm gonna kill everybody. It's like clearly they kind of want you to play a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have the honor meter, which I would be interested in trying to go back and like trying to get that honor meter the other way, because basically I did all the honorable things was like all the way far right. There was like a couple of things that made me lose a bit of honor, I guess, mostly shooting people who were trying to rob me for some reason. Like I felt like I maybe I went too far in that sometimes, but they were also trying to rob me. So,
it's the Wild West, man. You when you rob, you're signing a contract. That's a risk you take.
But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how the gameplay does change a little, because things I've read about it says that if you do have the honor meter on the other side, like outlaw hideouts will welcome you and they won't attack you on the way in, but towns might not want you in there, that type of thing. So it just kind of flips it. So it does actually seem to have some replayability in that instance.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. In the sequel, you'll see, Dave, you can like fucking murder a town, but then you if you go through the town, you're like, howdy, mister. If you tip your hat to everybody, your honor meter just like goes back up slowly. But it's like, I don't think these two are like equivalent at all.
Let's see. That guy murdered my entire family last week, but this week he was an awful gentleman.
Howdy,
ma'am.
It's the same type of idea where it's like, oh man, I killed 6 people. The bounty on me is $100. Well, if I go pay that bounty, they'll stop chasing me. It's like, that's not how bounties work.
Yeah. And you have a lot of money by the end, so it's really nothing to you just to be like, all right, well, I mean, I killed 6 people, but here's $100. Everybody good with that? All right, bye.
Yeah. I did like just the whole story that you follow John Marston. You could kind of feel this like, okay, I've got a mission to do. This person's my way. This person's my way. Like, you can feel the angst building in the entire game, and I really like how they did that with him, where it's like you meet this person who's supposed to help you, meet this person who's supposed to help you, then it leads you to another person who's supposed to help you. Then you finally find one of your guys, that you're trying to search for. You find the other one, and then you're like, okay, good. I've a U.S. Marshal. I found the people I'm looking for. Give me my family back. Oh no, you got to find your main guy. That wasn't part of the deal. Well, now it is. It's like, again, like I said earlier, no one's a saint in this. You can just see John getting continuously more angry and more angry and more angry. It was really relatable almost in a way how he's just getting jerked around so badly.
He really wants nothing to do with his old life.
No.
He would be content just living out life on that farm with his family,
Mm-hmm.
ignoring the world around him, and they keep dragging him back in and dragging him back in and then not letting him out once he's fulfilled certain conditions, and it sort of weighs on him. Yeah.
I love that. I love that meta shit that games do. Like BioShock is a famous example. You had no more choice in progressing the story than it turns out your character did. And in this, like, as the player, you are as frustrated as the character of how things keep, how your strings keep getting pulled.
Yeah. It's just, continuous that way.
And yet not in a frustrating way. I mean, it's frustrating in the sense of like, oh, you feel for the character, but you're not like, God, I resent these missions or this part of the story, which is a thing that some games struggle with, where you're like, this is clever narratively, but it's a slog to play through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was not a lot of, so certain Grand Theft Auto games in the past have really had like, okay, I have 8 different mission locations I could go start a mission on, varying degrees of importance. Someone's like, okay, this mission is go take a photo of some people. This mission progresses the main story. Like there's a whole tree of them. In Red Dead Redemption, it was basically like there was usually 2, maybe 3 locations to go to start a mission. They were all pretty story driven. They had a couple of like the stranger you'd run into if you wanted to do those side missions, which I'm glad you have those side missions. I never did find that guy's flowers, which I really was mad about. There was like one flower I couldn't find that I was just mad about. But like for the most part, it felt like, okay, I am actually here for a purpose. It's not like I'm out here trying to find my family, and then it's like, oh, well, this guy needs me to drive his cattle across town. So all I'm going to do is help this guy because it's a side mission, not because it wasn't fit into the plot somehow. All of it seemed to fit in the plot when you were doing some sort of missions for the most part.
Yeah. And what did you think of Dutch?
I suppose my next thing. I think Dutch was in an incredibly... they didn't do enough of him in 1, and I think you learn obviously a lot more about him in 2. But I liked his character for the most part. I liked how he just had this sense of like, yeah, I know I'm an outlaw, but what else am I going to do type of air to him. He was so much more of just like, look, I don't want to hurt people, but I've got to make my way in life, and this is the only way I know how, and the way I'm trying to help my group of people. So he was a really compelling villain in that sense, and it actually almost felt bad for him a little bit when John had to take him out. He felt bad for both of them just for the situation they'd been put in.
Yeah, that was the best. The whole like third act of that game with Dutch was great because he's like a relatable lunatic, and then you get this really long kind of denouement of like, where most movies or games the credits would roll. You're like, now you're gonna go do the missions you started the game with, that at the time were tutorials. You're going to go wrangle those cows again. And we'll throw in shooting every once in a while, but mostly it's just farm life. And you're going to do that for like maybe a couple hours.
That really threw me off so much so. And I think I even texted you guys about it. And I'm going to throw out my spoiler warning here because I definitely want to talk about what happens at the very end. But like, I remember like, okay, cool. I killed Dutch. It's over. Like, I'm going to go back to the Marshals and they'll give me my family back. And the Marshal's like, all right, your family's down at your farm. I'm like, cool. I'm going to ride in. We're going to hug, roll credits. Done with the game. Oh, there's missions. All right. Well, I guess I'll check out the... All right. Oh, that's nice. They're going to give me a nice little ending as far as this. I'm going to get to wrangle cattle with Jack, and I'm going to get to, protect the silo from crows. Like, I'm going to do, like, farm missions, basically, which is kind of a nice change of pace from this running around Mexico and the U.S. killing people. And then it didn't end, so...
Well, so maybe it's my, especially at the time, my Western naivete of like, so you open the barn doors and there's like 45 men out there. And I was like, this is bad. This is going to be tough. So, cause they give you the quick time and you, And I was like, okay, I can't get all of them, but like if I duck, I'm thinking ahead. If I duck behind this door right afterwards, it's going to give me some good cover. I've been in bad situations, and then mid thought, he just gets fucking blown away by like 1,000 bullets.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I wondered if I just didn't do good enough, but no, you're locked in.
That's the point. There were times of which it did feel almost a little disingenuous. Like if I had to critique it a little bit, like that last scene, it's like I've faced that many people before and I've hidden and they haven't charged me and I've taken them out and like it's not that bad. Like I've gotten out of situations like that, like you said, but there was no way you're getting out of this situation. So it felt a little disingenuous to the character, but I understand the point of it.
Well, maybe that was the point. Maybe he knew, like, this is it, because even if I get away, like, they're just going to keep coming. My family's never going to be safe. Clearly, there's no place in the world for me. And
which, man, that one hit hard. Because I remember, like, playing through that thing, like, oh, good, he did what they asked. The gang members are dead. He's separated himself from the old life. I like atonement. I like people repenting for their earlier mistakes in a sense of, yeah, I know I messed up. I want to make it right and live out a new life and start anew. I love that idea of starting anew. And then the stupid, basically evil, like, police force say, like, no, you screwed up way too much, dude. Like, we can't. Thanks for doing our dirty work, but, you know? It hurts.
I think I've said it before, but that is one of my favorite gameplay as story moments in like video game history.
Yeah.
It's like 15 seconds basically of realizing everything is fucked, putting those X's on as many heads as you possibly can. Hopefully the side dudes, because you're not killing the two in the middle. And
I tried. That's all I aimed for. Those two guys that had been leading me around. I tried.
I gave them one apiece, but I spread them out to the other ones. I wasn't confident it was going to work, but I thought I would try because at least maybe I could take them out with me because I knew I was dead. I loved it.
Yeah. It was stunning of a sense. Like he peeks out the barn door, and you're just like, "Okay, run, John. Go the other way. Like leave." And he's like, and he just makes the decision right then and there. So.
Yeah, man, you can't. It's a tough pill to swallow. The message they're trying to send there of like, you can't ever escape your past. If the only redemption he got, if you can call it that, is I guess like maybe, in the afterlife or however you want to say it, trying to be a good person, but it wasn't here because even his son could. The one thing he wanted for his son, not to go down the same life. And he absolutely did, which I loved. People have mixed feelings about the like epilogue. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I get it. Like I like how they kind of you can just keep playing the game and finish all your side quests and stuff like that if you wanted to as Jack. And like I think I did a couple of side quests, but then I found like the end of the game mission, which was go take out do the draw and the quick draw on the final U.S. Marshal guy. And it didn't have that same satisfaction, I guess, to it, because it just felt like to me they had created like the judicial system had created a new outlaw, and Jack's just going to go on that same path again, just this time in a different method because the Old West was dying, and that was kind of like the message that the whole game. So Jack is now going to be an outlaw as maybe a bootlegger in Prohibition times. So, he's going to find something to be an outlaw in because that's. This generational thing, you can't escape your past almost, which that sucks.
Yeah.
That really sucks.
And not only that, the revenge wasn't, and this is why I loved it. It like wasn't really satisfying. Like the guys are just kind of old now, and you almost felt kind of bad, but not really because they sucked. But like, it wasn't satisfying. He did it, which was great. But then you're like, well, that was it. This soul is destroyed, and for what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his mom's gone, his dad's gone, and now he has to go 19 years old or whatever he is and figure out his life when he has nothing, basically. Like, the old family he had's gone, his literal family's gone, and the whole group of family he had was gone, too. So, I don't know. I remember texting you guys and I said that I thought this is called Red Dead Redemption, not Red Dead. You can't escape your past.
Yeah, well.
And you can't.
His son gets redemption for his dad, just not in a sense of correcting his life and brightening his future.
Yeah.
But he does kill the guy who killed his dad, and seeing as his dad committed so many crimes where that was essentially leveling the playing field, I guess that means something.
Yeah.
It's not redemption in the strictest sense, but it's redeeming.
Yeah, when you find out that the title is almost like ironic and not what you thought. Yeah, that's tough. But that I mean, that's why it stood out to me. My favorite part of that game, when I look back, is every mission just riding along with whatever quest giver and just talking. Yeah. It's like I thought the dialogue and the characterization was so strong that part was just as fun for me as the gunfights.
Well, I was genuinely interested in a lot of those. Even not like I said, like I loved any of those characters specifically, but I was just kind of like, oh yeah, tell me about what your deal is. Let's ride along and let's hear about it in ways that I know, like Grand Theft Auto 4 did some of that in the car rides with Nico, but I never really felt that same attachment there.
Yeah. Man, in fact, sometimes if you die, when you go ride the second time, it's totally different dialogue.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, there was a couple times it almost did bother me when you were like, okay, we're going to go on this ride. There's a press X to skip button. I'm like, are you not talking? Do I need to wait? Or can I hit X now?
Yeah.
It's just going to be silent the whole time. Because there's a few of them where it's like, it was silent the whole trip. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Skip. Don't care.
Yeah.
But then there's a couple where like, they didn't talk for the first 30 seconds. And then they start talking. I'm like, oh shit, I missed it.
Yeah.
So you just didn't know whether or not to skip it.
So let me ask this. Shaun kind of alluded to it earlier in a different way, with just like the how the world and the setting shaped your John Marston, but just in general, was the Western setting a selling point over the urban sprawl of a Grand Theft Auto?
So I think the difference was because of Grand Theft Auto was seemingly really good at critiquing modern life. Like they have a lot of parody, a lot of over-exaggeration of modern life. Grand Theft Auto 5 was a lot of that, having some of the social media stuff, the reality TV stuff that Grand Theft Auto 5 had was really over-the-top parody of normal Southern California life. Because this is a little bit more folklore almost, they didn't have that parody aspect of it, so it felt like just a nicer sandbox game with a lot more heart in it. So I don't know, I did like the Western setting of that. It had a lot more heart I guess.
There was a radio show, I think it was in Grand Theft Auto 3, where there's a fortune teller and she's like, oh God, I'm not gonna be able to remember it, but it's basically like trying to prove her power. She's like, has anyone ever told you something that didn't turn out to be the case? And everybody's like, yeah, that's me. Oh my God. So to your point, they're very good at that. But yeah, there's humor in Red Dead, but it's not the same, like, cynical outlook on everything.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing that stood out for me is that they didn't have that biting commentary because it's 100 years ago. So, like, why do you need biting commentary on 100 years ago?
Essentially. To me, the distinction, especially having played 5 since Red Dead and Red Dead 2 since then, is the Grand Theft Auto games increasingly for fans are about how big the city is. And the city is sort of a character unto itself because it's, it mirrors these real life places and it's just huge. You can drive all over the place. But because they spend so much time on that aspect of the open world, I feel like they don't do it as much with the personalities within it, and that's what Red Dead 1 and 2 has in spades.
Mm-hmm. I'm amazed at starting Red Dead 2, the depth that you feel just walking around your campsite in Red Dead 2. You walk around, you hear conversations. You can just walk in and hear two people talking about something, and you can kind of take part in it. It doesn't progress the game at all. It has no bearing on whether you hear it or not, but they programmed it in there. They programmed these conversations. They recorded the dialogue. Like, the amount of things that they programmed there that most people, 75, 90% of people, are never even going to hear is incredible to me. And that happens in all games where, like, you program this in and not everybody's going to hit that mark. But, like, nowadays, it's like there's so much content that many people are never going to hit. It's amazing how they do it.
One of Red Dead 2's greatest strengths is those side conversations because they were all voiced. It's easy enough in RPGs to have voiceless dialogue that you add in for NPCs you might talk to in some random ass town, but that's just text. And while it takes time in writing, there's an extra level of commitment to just being like, all right, if they happen to walk by the camp in this particular part at this part of the game, they're going to run into this conversation. Mm-hmm. And they might only hear part of it. They might just keep walking and never engage with it. But we're going to spend the time on it anyways, just because.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gives the characters depth. It gives the characters personality. Like, a lot of the people in the camp when you walk around Red Dead 2 right now are just like, yeah, I actually feel like you're a person that's traveling with me that I actually care about. Some of the women there really care about keeping track of the camp and keeping everything running. It feels like a community, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Well, you get that, you get context of the world, you get the perspectives on it, but you also get their perspective on Arthur and like what he means to them, what he means to the camp, and it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've gotten Red Dead 2 started, and I'll definitely play through it eventually. I just feel like this is going to take a lot longer because my God, it's such a bigger game.
Yeah, I would say a piece of advice is on the really long horse rides, you can find a way to auto pilot it. Basically, you can set the course, and if you go into cinematic mode, you'll just go and go do something. Go read a book or have something next to you. It really helped me, honestly.
I just really wish they would have kept the fast travel like they did in Red Dead 1 because I use that a lot.
There's you can unlock a fast travel away from your camp, but not back to it. And that's not till later. So
a confusing choice.
No.
I mean, I think the idea was to sort of ride around and experience everything, but you could do plenty of that in the first game, and you could have done even more of that here if you had chosen to. It would have been nice to have the option not to at times, especially. I don't have a lot of huge issues with 2, even though I like 1 a little bit more than it, but that was the one where I was like, more so than some of the meters and stuff, which I didn't mind as much as some other players did. That's the one. And the other advice I'll give you, too, just separately, is like don't skip some of the activities around the camp, like dominoes and that kind of stuff, and the silly knife game where I don't know why anybody ever played that. It just seems like a terrible idea and an awful way to pass the time. Don't skip those things, but like don't spend a lot of time on them. Poker's the same way. Like there's not really any payoff for it, and you're just adding hours onto what's already a long game. If it's gonna like do it if you can. If you have the time, don't skip it. But if you're like, I want to make sure I beat this, but I don't have a ton of time, those are all things that can easily just go.
Yep. I kind of try everything once, and then it's like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm good.
It's definitely worth doing them once to see them, just to kind of see what the interactions are like to play them. But they're all kind of slow and plodding. Yeah. Like poker feels slower than it did in the first game, and there's no excuse for that in 2019.
No, I feel no compelling reason to play poker in this, which is weird for me because I liked it a lot in 1.
The only time they have it embedded into a mission at one point, and that's really fun. But other than that, I never did it because it's slow and you can't win really anything anymore from
$2.
it. Yeah,
it's like $2 or $3.
Whoa.
Like, all right.
What a bunch of hardcore outlaws.
Playing penny poker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, why, even when you skip hands, like when you fold and you're like, all right, go to the next hand, it takes like 15 seconds to get the next hand dealt. And I'm like, this wouldn't happen in online poker where you have to have set delays. Why is this happening in a video game? To show me how slow things were in the 1890s? Because I already know that. I don't need help with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of other comments and jokes I can make about Red Dead 2, but we'll get an opportunity in about 4 months from now.
It took me like a month, maybe a month to beat Red Dead.
Well, I know, but 2 is probably 3 to 4 times the size of 1. So,
well, I mean, I'm like a quarter of the way in, I think. So,
depends on how many side quests you do. You can maybe beat it in 3 months.
What chapter are you in?
2.
Unfortunately, not all the chapters are made equally, but yeah, chapter 2 is good. You got off the mountain. You've started this. Where are you in the story right now?
Let's see. I got off the mountain, and I've done like the first kind of, I would say, like set of missions. I have to go to one other. Javier Escuela is the next like mission I have to go see. So, which is really weird after playing Red Dead 1. I'm like, wait a minute, Escuela, I have to go after that guy.
Yeah.
No, he's on my team now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dutch. Yeah, I have a plan. You might have not even gotten to that point yet. He kind of gets to I'm not going to say anything. It's fine. It's fine. Just you'll discover it on your own.
You can imagine where it's heading, having played 1.
Yeah.
Even not knowing a ton about Dutch yet in 2. You can probably see where this is going to go.
I actually remind me, Dave. You're actually pretty good about this. So remind me when we review 2 that I have a theory about what in part is responsible for Dutch becoming the way that he is.
All right. I can do that.
Okay.
But man, Rockstar, they put out some good stuff overall. I'm always amazed, like how they don't put out a ton of stuff, but the stuff they do put out is really good. So.
Yeah.
And they make like bajillion dollars on it too.
Yeah, and it helps.
And say what you will, whether or not you love the game. Like, I'm not a huge Grand Theft Auto fan, but even I'll admit, like, there's a ton of stuff packed in there. They put a ton of work into these games. It's amazing they're still $60, like a lot of games these days. But theirs especially, I mean, they're so huge.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve a ton of credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a score.
Let's see. This one, it's definitely not a perfect game. I liked it a lot. I would say this one's probably going to be... I'd say 8.5 is probably where I'd go. Because I liked it a lot. The story was kind of plotting at times, but they had a lot of relatable characters. So overall, yeah, I liked it a lot.
8.5 seems about right. I might give it a 9, but
yeah,
I'm also the one who likes the first game the most of the three of us. So
yeah, I'd probably give it like an 8.9. I'm reviewing on my second playthrough. It's lower, but I don't think that's fair. I want to review it how it was the first time. And
right.
Yeah, 8.9.
It'd probably drop a little bit for me now too, but it's also a 10-year-old game, so it's like
it was a little jarring going back to PlayStation 3 graphics.
Yeah,
especially after playing 2.
Yeah,
for me,
I plugged in 2. I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah,
and
there we go.
The shooting is not phenomenal. It's much improved in 2, but it's had plenty of time to do so because it was, at the time, that was in Red Dead still much better than it was in Grand Theft Auto 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, if you're not using Deadeye and you're not auto-locking, snapping onto things, it's kind of a pain to shoot things in that game.
Yep.
Well, that is our retro review of Redemption.
Which, let me just say really quick.
5 hours.
Is so much better of a format than rapid reviews. I thought about rapid reviews. Rapid reviews might be... in a show where we have a lot of we have a lot of great segments. We also have had our fair share of like, that's not a good segment. Rapid reviews might be the worst one because it's a format that demands that we don't interact for like 1 to 2 minutes at a time. That's like what the worst thing about the show is if we can't get that interaction. One person talking for however long the review is.
It's also a horrible crunch of content.
Yeah.
If it was like the way that if we were, a much bigger podcast where we could just consume media all the time, and that was like the way we reviewed episodes of a show, and we wanted to fit in quite a few shows in, okay, that segment could have merit. But there were times we were doing like an entire season of, if not an entire show, and it's like, all right, well, we're going to talk about this for 1 minute, and sure, there was follow-up discussion, but
no.
It disappeared a while ago. You'll notice there's been no push to bring it back.
No, this is, and that's why I like this. I'm also glad we were going to do another retro review of a different game, and I'm glad we didn't because we even had a backup to Red Dead that we're not getting to because the show's over.
Yep.
Because we are just, we can toot our own horn. Sometimes we're just good at like talking.
We don't have silence. It's just weird.
It's just a thing that happens. So
we've done that on entire car rides. We've done that. It's cake.
Although it does make me laugh that Shaun says the worst part about our show is when someone talks for 1.5 minutes straight, which as he was talking for close to 1 minute straight.
No way. That's not true. And you had a chance to interact. You didn't take it.
It's weird. I'm the person most likely to talk for 1 minute plus straight if I'm building a larger point. Shaun is the person most likely to talk for 5 minutes out of 5.5 minutes. But he usually leaves openings for people to come in more frequently. But he'll also like take over for a shorter segment like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where Dave's role is in that.
I'm probably in the middle again.
Probably, yeah.
It seems that this keeps happening to me.
But that's fine. We all have our role, and that's perfect. At this point, we're all established. Like, we're not going to change our stripes. We've gotten as good as we're going to get at radio, I think. And now it's just, can we hone our craft and make it so millions of people listen?
Well, I'll tell you what. I was listening to a podcast, and I'm not going to say what it is. Someone said to me, it's a blessing in the skies the other day. I was like, that's not right. That's wrong. But I'm not going to say who it is because I've been burned like 4 times, at least 4, maybe even 20, on someone listening to the show and being like, hey, I didn't like that you said that thing. And so the fact that at best, I'm just being contrarian worst. Sometimes I'm like playing a character or exaggerating. It doesn't matter. People are like, hey, I heard that thing. I didn't like that. So I'm being careful now. So I'm not going to say who said it, but blessing in the skies kind of But it makes sense. You know, it's a blessing. It's
I don't know. I've heard people say it's a mute point, which is like
yeah. Nip it in the butt is one I hear a lot.
Yep.
Which I'm like, what are you doing
Whose
if you
butt?
nip something in
Whose
the
butt?
butt? You,
That's all I want to
like,
know.
what is that? Blessing in the skies, at least, is kind of like.
Well, nipping the butt's like the copper tone girl.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that could be. I like blessing in the skies, though, of like, this could have been a bad thing, but there's blessings all around us.
That's an excellent way to bring religion into everyday life.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So maybe you can surmise who said it just based on that, actually. But yeah, I was listening to a podcast to go back all the way to my original point. See, this is why I talk for minutes at a time sometimes. And I was listening to them, and I was like, their content's good. They're clearly prepared. They have interesting stuff to say. They don't have any chemistry at all with each other, or like even like on their own, which is not how you define chemistry. But like it sounds forced, and like I'm cringing when I listen to them. And I was thinking, we don't really have that.
Well, we had that when we first tried to script out our show a little bit.
Oh, I feel like the first only twice, the first few episodes, and then when we tried to redo a show that we lost.
Yes.
We're like, make sure you hit all the same jokes again.
Yeah.
It didn't
Greatest
work
hits.
for some reason.
Didn't work.
Didn't work.
God, back then Dave would have read off in his script for the entire episode if he could have gotten away with it.
This would have been like, all right, I'm going to read this right here.
Thank God we got away from that era.
Yeah. But I mean, to my point is like, I think let's do like a live radio show. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
When we did, the thing I'm most proud of on this podcast is the interviews that we did, I think. I was surprised how well we ran those interviews.
When you had a good man, I would have liked to see what happened if we had a really bad guest.
We had a couple of them, and we still did pretty good.
There were a couple that were bad. I remember.
This is also where we won't name people, but
No.
there were a couple that were a little clunky.
I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
But we still did a good job. I mean, it's not. There's only so far we can take it.
We also got a couple of interviews we had no business getting.
Yeah.
If we're being perfectly honest. Like,
I still don't know how you had like Lauren Travia or
Brittany Johnson. Those two in particular come to mind. Of like they're like J tier celebrities on a N tier podcast at best. Maybe like W.
Yeah, but I think more like W probably. Yeah.
But hey, that was one of our strengths. I think interviewing is something that we're pretty solid at. But we also prepped for those quite a bit.
We did.
And that's the trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
So
we'll stop it now.
Yes.
Because we could just keep kind of spiraling. We should do that sometime.
Chemistry. We
could talk for hours, but we're not going to be talking about a whole bunch at this point. And then at a certain level, it's like, well, now you're just talking about yourselves.
I mean, that's okay. We worked hard. We spend hours every week like deprecating ourselves and each other. It's okay once in a while to be like, hey, you know what? There are some good things that we do. There are some things we're proud of.
Build ourselves back up.
Yeah, but we'll stop now. We won't make you suffer through this anymore.
So that's the end of the episode. In between shows, you can find us at the places listed correctly this week at the bottom of your screen, youtube.com/Objection Network and ObjectionNetwork.com. And that's all the stuff you need to worry about. See you next time.